We are all here, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the EGPP annual conference titled Europe's Changing Political System and Issue Space, What Lessons from the 2019 European Elections? My name is Lorenzo Cicchi, and I am the coordinator of the EGPP. First of all, I would like to thank a number of persons. First of all, the co-organizers of the conference, especially for accepting to wear, let's say, the double hat of organizers, but also chairs and discussants of the panel. So Alexander Trexel from the University of Lucerne, Diego Garcia from the University of Lausanne and a permanent visiting fellow at the UI, and Brigitte Laffan, director of the Schuman Center, who also served as founding director of the EGPP since its creation, before passing on the directorship to Daniele Caramani last September. And the thank you goes also to Daniele as well for being here and participating to these opening remarks. I would like also to thank Lisbeth Huhe and Hans-Peter Krisi for having enthusiastically accepted our invitation to act as chairs and discussants, respectively, of the first panel today and the last sixth panel tomorrow afternoon. And also would like to thank Simon Hicks, who will join the EY at the beginning of the next academic year as Steinbrock and chairholder at the Department of Social and Political Science for delivering today the opening keynote speech. I would also like to thank all the speakers who prepared this great contribution to the conference, and of course the participants for being here with us for this very long day and a half until tomorrow afternoon. And finally, a big thank you goes to Sara and Martina for making sure that this conference is possible from the point of view of the logistics, techs, and comms. So before I leave the floor to the other co-organizers for some words of welcome, allow me to say a few things about this conference inception and some more practical housekeeping rules. So the EGPP does a number of things, and among these, it organizes an annual academic conference that revolves around the crucial theme for Europe. In 2018, in the first annual conference, focused on the many crucial national elections that took place across the European countries in the previous year. In 2019, the annual conference focused on the political, social, and cultural consequences of multi-level governance. And then the idea for the next annual conference was to basically take stock 1 year after of how the European political system and political space have changed after the particularly important 2019 EP elections. So this process started actually quite a long time ago, practically right before the pandemic, with a call for paper and the idea to bring you guys all here to Florence in October 2020. But then reality begged to differ, let's say, and we postponed this to early 2021 once again, thinking that, you know, at that time, the travel and gathering restriction would have eased by that time. This, of course, as proven by the fact that we are all here on Zoom, hasn't happened either. But nonetheless, we are very happy to be finally meeting, if only virtually. And I once again would like to welcome you all to this very rich and dense day and a half together. Now, as for the housekeeping rules are concerned, the usual applies. So please keep your microphones muted, but the video on in order to retain a sort of a feeling of presence. And let's nurture the illusion that we're all here in the same room. For the presentation, make reference to what your chair and discussant has decided and will repeat at the beginning of each panel. In any case, the 4 paper panels should have around 10 minutes for the presentation for each presenter, while the 3 papers panel can take things a little slower, but not exceeding 15 minutes per presentation. If you have a question, write down your name in the public chat or use the raise of hand function. And finally, remember that each session will have a different Zoom link. So always keep the last email that Sarah sent you open, because there you have all the information divided by panel and by day. So without further ado, I leave the floor to the other organizers and to the EGPP director, starting from Diego, then Alex, then Daniele, and finally Brigitte, who will introduce Simon for the opening keynote. Thank you, Diego, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Lorenzo. And well, I'd like to use just a minute to welcome everybody also on behalf of the University of Lausanne to this annual EGPP conference. I'm sure Alex will share with me the feeling that we are both very happy that we are still able to contribute from Switzerland to the activities of the Schuman Center, to which we've been affiliated for many, many years. It's nice today to see many old faces, and it's nice to see many new faces, at least new to me. As Lorenzo mentioned, we did our best to make sure this conference could actually take place in the real world. For reasons we all know we couldn't do. We are confident that we'll be able to do it next year. But we also thought that this conference needed to take place, because on the one hand, it's annual, so it means that every year has to take place, but because of the timeliness of the topic. Europe's changing political system, changing issue space, were of particular interest already in 2019, when we first thought about this conference. Changes in the European political system could have large effects, even in the pre-pandemic, on the way in which the member states would have been affected. However, we thought that to understand the way in which representation works in Europe is all the most crucial nowadays, with Europe being obviously the central actor and decision maker for all countries involved in the way forward towards the post-pandemic. Before passing on to Alex, I would like to thank again Lorenzo, Daniele, Brigid, as well as Sara and Martina for hosting us, for making this work, and of course to all the participants for making it to this conference, and we'll look forward to listening to you and discussing your papers. Thanks so much. Alex, you're muted.
Thank you very much, Diego. And also from my side, a warm welcome to everybody to this annual EGPP conference. It is a real pity that we're not able to be in Florence all together now. We tried hard. We were optimistic that we could at some point do this in personam, but it was not to happen. But I hope that at the next EGPP annual conference, some of us at least will be able to meet up again in Florence. Also from my side, a very warm thank you to the co-organizers, to Brigid and Daniele, of course, at the EUI, Lorenzo and Diego, with whom we have been working on this conference. From my point of view, I'm very happy and satisfied for at least 3 reasons: a scientific one, an institutional one, and a personal one. I mean, scientifically, and Diego has mentioned it, this is an important topic. The European polity is changing, politics are changing, and there are important issues at stake now more than ever. We have been able to put together a great bunch of scholars now present here in this conference with their contributions and their thinking on these changing policy spaces that we find in Europe. And when we have conceptualized the conference program, of course, this was even before the pandemic, things looked very different, of course, and we're up to a moving target now, in a sense. The pandemic has not only forced us to go online with this conference and have this in a Zoom format, but it most probably also affects the issue space in politics in Europe. So some of our contributions are probably already outdated, and might be good to think about this in the future event, of course, how this issue has affected parties and voters in Europe. On the institutional side, of course, I'm very happy that this conference unites 3 institutions: the European University Institute, my former home, the University of Lucerne, my current home, and the University of Lausanne, where Diego holds his professorship. And I think this is, again, proof of the strengthening of our trans-Alpine relations in academia. On a personal note, to finish with, I'm also very excited that this annual conference at the EUI is in a sense following up on the very earlier efforts that we have undertaken at the EUI with the UDO adventure, the European Union Democracy Observatory, that has then become something much larger and much more important, which is the current EGPP. And I think also for the future, we will be able to cooperate again. The next EP elections are coming up in only 3 years now. And we have been since 2009 trying to make a contribution to measuring issues in Europe, party positions, voters, preferences through our voting advice applications that we have continuously made and which we have the intention to continue to do, to put together in the next elections as well. So again, many thanks to everybody for being here and sharing their thoughts and papers and reflections. And over to you, Bridget.
I think Daniela first.
Oh, sorry, Daniele.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. As you have just heard, I've taken over from a very long tradition, and I'm very honored in this new role as director of the EGPP since last September, when I arrived to the EUI with my appointment at the Robert Schuman Center as Ernst Haas Chair in European Governance and Politics. Although I had no active role in organizing this annual conference, it is my great pleasure to welcome everyone in this new capacity. And I want to thank the organizers, first of all, Lorenzo Cicchi, Diego Garcia, Brigitte Laffan, and Alex Trexel, as well as Sarah Bernstein and Martina Popova for the administrative and technical support. And I want also to thank the panelists for their papers and their presentations. I can assure you that it is a beautiful spring and sunny day in Florence, and I very much regret that we cannot welcome you here this year. And like everyone else, I hope that the next annual conference will be in person here in beautiful Villa Schifanoia. I wish you all an engaging, stimulating, and successful conference nonetheless, and look forward to exchanging ideas with you over the next day and a half. Thank you very much.
So good afternoon, everyone. And it's a great pleasure for me as director of the Schuman Center, in fact, in my final year as director of the Schuman Center, to welcome you to this EGPP annual conference. And as you know, we had hoped to be able to share a fine meal this evening and a glass of wine, but given that that's not possible, the next best thing is to see so many faces, to see you all. All of you have been linked to the Schuman Center in one way or another and have contributed greatly to our intellectual community and to our academic endeavor. I'd like to thank all of you for being part of this. I also want to thank Lorenzo, Sarah, and Martina, because without you, this wouldn't have happened. And a special thanks to my co-organizers, Alex and Diego, with whom I have traveled long on UDO and the VAA over the last number of years. I'm absolutely delighted with the fact that this is happening and Daniela is in situ, because although I would never publicly admit this, every director of Schuman has their pet projects, the ones that they really, really care about. And it's no secret that EGPP is one of the ones, not the only one, but one of the Schuman projects that I have been very committed to. And one of my goals before leaving was to make sure that we had continuity and academic leadership for EGPP. And so it was fantastic that Daniela accepted the chair and that he's now here, and the program, despite the fact that we're working remotely, the program is up and running and very vibrant. So Daniela, a great welcome to you. And it's been, in a way, I am content that I leave EGPP in such wonderful hands. And I'm delighted to hear from Alex and Diego that they also want to continue the cooperation and collaboration, which is something I will leave on my handover note to my successor to make sure. And then finally, let me introduce our keynote speaker this evening. I can think of no one better to open this conference. Simon Hicks, professor at the LSE now, but about to be the Stein-Roken professor at the EUI. In many ways, Simon, you're coming home. You're coming back to an intellectual home in autumn of this year, and your contribution to the topics that are at the core of the EGPP has been tremendous. You were the pioneer in terms of a comparative politics approach to the study of the EU. You kept reminding those who thought maybe it was a distinctive international organization that this was a political system, and that's very important. But you've also been extremely concerned, both from a normative but also an empirical perspective, in the democratic fabric of this political system and this polity. But of course, your work isn't just on the EU. You've also worked on major themes of comparative politics, on social democracy, electoral institutions. And so in a way, you bring that broader political space and structuring of politics, a la the Roken tradition, to the study of the EU. Your paper today, Europe's Changing Political Space from 1 to 2 Dimensions and Back, is a great opener for the theme of the conference. And if I have one regret at leaving I have many regrets, of course, at leaving the EUI, but one of them is that there are so many great people from next year on, but I will hope to stay engaged at some level with the Institute. So Simon, you're very welcome, and we look forward to your paper.